Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is abundance teacher and money coach, Jody Lynn Craven.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And Jody Lynn, we're going to be able to talk to an expert today on how to remove that inner critic. In fact, she's written I believe it's a PDF on the subject. It's basically how to release your inner critic thing, and it's something that resonates on a number of levels with a number of different people. Not the least of which is my neighbor. I think I've mentioned this neighbor before a few times, but I can hear them in the background right now. The mom is absolutely screaming at her 5-year-old daughter, which is a very typical pattern. And I know it's not just the daughter. I mean, that's just the way these things work. So now, if there was some way I could just hand this podcast off to her, I would do that. But unfortunately, that means basically getting into somebody else's business. So I can't really do that. But if nothing else, we'll be learning more about today. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're welcoming Julie Van Elswyk. Did I pronounce that right?
You got that. Yes.
Okay.
Good job.
To the show today. And Julie, you're a coach. You are the author of the material that I mentioned earlier. But we need to also know more about who you are and how you ended up doing what you're doing.
Yes.
In part because most of us, when we end up following paths like this, we go through the hell ourselves, and then we realize, I got something, I got to share it with everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes, I am a law of attraction coach, which is very applicable to your podcast. And worthiness coach, I help women upgrade their emotional set point to be able to elevate and both rewire their minds, their inner support, their inner critic, as you mentioned, for more freedom. And then I also attract their desires, utilizing some of those principles with law of attraction. And you're right. I went through it, as we all do. I mean, that's part of the beauty and the struggle of life. Growing up, I was a people pleaser. Grew up in a very large family and was, I think, struggling to just be seen, be accepted. And I found my way through pleasing and through performing and through being kind of what everyone wanted me to be. And my internal critic was rampant. I mean, just completely out of control. So when I look back, I didn't know that my internal critic was out of control. It's the symptom is misery.
Yeah.
I mean, we live with ourselves and we live with our minds. And if we dread being alone, if we get home from social engagements and we ruminate about what we said or did or how we showed up, or these are symptoms. People pleasing is another one, symptoms that we care a lot about external validation, and our internal mind is really breaking us down. And it's so heavy to carry. Because I didn't notice that this was going on with me, it took a long time. I was I was 30 when my oldest son was diagnosed with leukemia.
Ooh.
And we went through 3.5 years of cancer treatment. And you can imagine, seeing your son go through all these blood transfusions and procedures and spinal taps and taking him to the ER every time he spiked a fever, and shots in the middle of the night and chemo doses. And it was a lot. And for someone who was hard on herself already in my own mind, you can imagine the blame that I put on myself for all of that. It was a very heavy thing that I went through. Coming through that, though, I realized I had PTSD, and my PTSD was just that blame that just kept coming back and saying, this was your fault. You should have controlled this better. Similar to the mother that's your neighbor right now. She's trying so hard to control, right? To just
exactly.
control things to make it feel like it's in her safety box. And
And what's
with
really sad
me,
about it is that she doesn't realize that what she's actually doing is training her daughter to have the exact same mindset she's got.
exactly. And honestly, I saw that happening with me. I saw that happening with my kids. And came out of my son's cancer treatment really micromanaging everything in our lives, micromanaging what went into our bodies, what went into our environmental factors. I started exploring every other option. I didn't trust the medical system entirely anymore. I mean, they had done wonders for my child. Um, but they also told me, well, go ahead and feed him French fries whenever he's hungry, if that's all he'll eat. And I thought, well, that doesn't feel right to me. So I started questioning everything. And it was really when I found myself quite miserable, unable to be present. My mind was just so active. And then I had friends that pulled me aside routinely to say, this isn't right. This isn't normal. I think you need to see somebody. And that's when I went through EMDR therapy. And that did wonders for me, for my trauma. It did wonders for helping me start down the path of rewiring to who I am and stepping outside of the people pleasing and being able to take up my own space unapologetically, to release the blame, the shame, all those things. But when I came out of that, even though it did wonders for me, I had this old wiring that would still fire. And, it just, with the old patterns and echoes and the old records still played.
Yeah.
So what I found was mindset coaching, the hypnosis, hypnotherapy, and hypnotic recordings. These were the tools that led me down the path I am on today with helping other women to rewire, because those were the tools that really rewired and trained me to implement different beliefs, implement different thoughts, implement different patterns of thought through repetition, through subconscious programming. And so those are the tools that I then became trained in and guide women through today is coaching, a lot of CBT focused coaching. I use law of attraction tools because I was immersed in the fact that we create our own reality. We are not victims here. And also the subconscious programming. I am a hypnosis practitioner. And so I create recordings for my clients to help implement through repetition in that slowed state, new beliefs that they're looking to integrate, new beliefs about themselves, about their worthiness, about their lives. So that is how I got here. I threw a lot at you right there.
That's fine. That's good. Well, that's why, I asked you, I opened the door, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's a good time to be a people pleaser, right? You're doing exactly what I asked you to do.
There you go. Yeah. Checking the boxes. Check is showing up.
But I love especially what you said about how, I don't remember what the exact phrasing was, but the gist of it about how we have this victim orientation when we realize that, we're volunteers. We're not so much victims. I remember the first time that I was kind of brought face to face with that thought, and it was a shock. I mean, and then it was also delightful after I realized what the potential benefit was. But at first it was like, what do you mean?
Yeah. And that
right,
is so
Lynn, am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. It's like F you and possibilities all at the same time.
All at the same time. That's right. Yeah.
Right. And I felt the same way. And I see that with each of my clients as we go through that. As soon as this becomes evident that we do create what is coming into our space, what's attracting to us, we are the active player, not just a active player. We are the active player in our own story, and the filter that we perceive things through and how we react and process our own emotions creates everything, creates opportunity, creates what we're putting out there to the world, who's going to come back into our presence, who's going to trust us. I mean, it creates everything. And yes, every one of my clients has that, oh crap moment, where it's like, Oh, and then there is a bit of panic, I would say, after that as well, where they notice when they're doing it. And it's sort of this scramble of
Yeah.
like, oh, no, take it back. Bring back the thoughts I was just thinking, bring back the focus I just had, and this panic. But that's actually a good sign because it was happening before. The awareness is just there now. And so there's the opportunity to say, where am I going to, okay, what tools do I have to refocus here? What tools what is every subject can be focused on. And both of you know this coming from law of attraction and abundance, that every subject can be focused on in one light and the opposite light.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where we create our reality.
Yeah.
And in that moment of like having that awareness, I think something that's really key, and I'd love for you to speak more about this, is when I started noticing this in my own personal journey, the first thing that came back up was the critic. Like, see, you're not better. See, you suck. See, you didn't do it right. Like,
I told you so.
Super loud. And
Yeah.
retraining my brain, it took a long time to get into the mindset of, no, this is an opportunity. Like, put down the stick. It's not time to beat yourself. This is an opportunity to choose something different. That's all that it is. It's not good. It's not bad. It just is. Yes.
I love that. And it's so true. The weight that comes off, right? When you can refocus it as an opportunity. And also what I walk through with my clients is when you become aware of what that internal message is saying, the beating yourself up, understanding the intent of it, because that message is just trying to help. It's trying to protect. That mother outside yelling at her child, her intent might be good. Her method is just very poor. It's not working, right? But the intent is to protect us so often from some sort of hurt. And is it outdated? Yes, it's outdated. It doesn't work well. That method does not work well. Taking a switch to a child does not work well. This has been proven. And same with taking the switch to ourselves. So when we look at that and say, okay, my internal voice is actually trying to help me avoid something here. It's trying to help me stay safe. And then we examine the fear behind that a little bit. What am I afraid of? What am I really afraid of? I'm afraid I'm going to screw up my life, to go back to you're doing this to yourself. I'm afraid I'm going to screw up my life. I'm afraid I'm going down a wrong path. Okay, then let's soothe that fear. Have compassion for it, because it really is trying to help. And when we can have compassion for that voice inside that's really, truly trying to help us, it feels seen. It's like that little piece of us inside, like a child, to keep going with our metaphors here, but the child pulling on our pant leg, that's what our emotions are. And if we can sit down and look it in the eyes and say, I see you, I get it. You're here to help. I understand. And have some compassion there, then it is open. We're a team. Then you can give it different tools. You can start to give it a different story to tell you. Yeah. So it's that process that I bring, mainly women. I'm working with some men right now too, through to redefine their inner voice. And it's only really when they've seen it and given it, it's stage time, giving it a hug, so to speak, that then that voice is open to, okay, we can do this differently. What do you want to say? How should I show up for you in this moment? I'm a big fan of talking about the different facets of yourself and talking to yourself and all the different little pieces. And I'll do that myself. I'll be in the car and I'll pass a store and it'll trigger a memory where I bought a gift once that I was hard on myself for. Oh, that wasn't the right gift and I shouldn't have done that. And I will out loud talk to myself in that moment and say, oh, I understand. You're just trying to show up really well in that moment. Oh, you're just trying so hard, but I'm here for you. And you did your best. And you know what? You're a great friend and you showed up, and just take a deep breath, have some compassion for yourself. I will talk to myself. And honestly, I can feel the lightness right now, just feeling that like lift off. And that's one of the tools that I use with my clients as well.
Another aspect of this that I don't think it affects quite as many people as what we've been talking about, but it affected me. That's why I always think about it, is the first time that I faced that whole idea that I didn't have to think of myself as a victim anymore, that actually I was harming myself by thinking of myself as a victim. And then taking to the next level of being a volunteer. Then the next thing I realized was, holy crap, all these things I give attention to, they're all negative. What the hell? This is a major job. How am I supposed to manage all of this?
Right. And it's just one step at a time, right? Somehow you survived thinking all those negative things repeatedly. So anything you work on from here has got to be moving you in the right direction, even if it's baby steps, right? Yeah. And it's so easy for all of us just to focus on what's going wrong, you know? I think that's where it takes the intention. But if we can bring the intention into it, I think our tolerance for focusing on the negative gets smaller and smaller. We get less and less willing to stay in a negative or bad feeling place the more we practice this intentionally, and then it gets easier as we go. So there's sort of like a tipping point in there somewhere where it does start working for us and with us.
I think for me, that tipping point is more where all of a sudden I for the first time experience, not only am I no longer focused so much on the stuff that was damaging to me, but I'm actually finding joy in stuff.
Yeah.
But like when that first started to happen, that actually is what made it easier.
Yeah.
Because that's where like you have a counterbalance going on, right? You know,
right.
And now it's not all negative. Now you're actually getting some positive stuff happening, and the positive stuff kind of makes you take a breath and just calm down. Like, okay, I can let go of stuff a little bit easier now because at least something went right. Thank goodness, something finally went right.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's all about momentum, right?
Absolutely.
We had our momentum going in that negative direction. And when we just slow it down a bit, it gives the opportunity for a positive momentum to start picking up. And when we can get on that train, then that we can roll with that one and let that one go down the hill, you know, and run away with us, which is a lot more enjoyable. It's just a lot more enjoyable.
And when you get into that enjoyment mode and you stay there more frequently, then an amazing thing happens. Life becomes easy.
And that is the goal.
It is.
Right?
Well, it's also, again, there's another shock that happens. The first shock is the one we talked about earlier. The second one is when you find that it actually works to be doing the work. The work actually leads to a positive result.
Right. Exactly. And again, you know, usually when I meet with women, it's like 6 to 8 sessions. My goal is not to be, you know, the source in their life. I want them to be the source in their life of being able to change that momentum and start that positive direction and be able to feel better. And to know, again, like when I start meeting with a client, there is that victim mentality oftentimes. This is happening to me. The circumstances outside me are dictating my life. And it's to be able to look at that, I can already see how powerful they are. And I just hold that for them. By the end of our sessions together, they are seeing how powerful they are. And that's what I love, is that transfer. You know, I see it when they come in. I'm like, I don't have time for that. Let's get down to the work. You're going to be astounded. But then to see them switch trains and get on and realize that they are creating their life, to realize that they can step into these desires and that they didn't maybe see themselves in or worthy of, we clean that up, clean up that energy, right? And when that gets cleaned up and they start to see things rolling their way, like you're talking about, Walt, it's like, oh my goodness, the world opens up. You know, Jody Lynn mentioned possibility. It's like, boom, like the stars open And then it's anything is, if you can think it can come your way. Just line up with it. And it's a beautiful
that's the beauty
thing.
of being a coach too. I mean, well, Jody Lynn, you're a coach. I mean, when you're working with a client and you get that client to make that move like that, I mean, that's your joy, right? That's where you
100%.
feel, yeah, this is why I'm doing this.
Yes, when it lands and they're like, oh, and they see that power and the possibilities. Like, that's my favorite word in the entire world, probably.
Yes.
It's a beautiful thing to witness and be a part of.
It is. It is. You know, oftentimes we will tell ourselves a story, and we all do it. But if I can hear someone else's story, or if someone can witness my story, they can see where you've created a box, you know, where you've created the container of belief. Yeah. Well, I have to do this, or I have to do this, or I have to go here, or this is, you know, marital decisions. Well, one person wins and one person loses. And that you're totally cutting yourself off. We all do it, to all the possibility of the billion other ways that could play out. And when you can boil it down to the feeling that you want, you know, coming back to law of attraction, that's what it's all about, right? We're all just want things because we think we're going to feel better in the having of them. And so to be able to boil it down to the feeling, and I was even working with clients talking about spouse relationships and well, what's the feeling that they want behind that? Well, what's the feeling you want behind that? And the feeling, it doesn't mean it has to be this way or this way. Right. You know, there's a million other ways that can play out. And we've all seen that happen. We've all seen the story of, that's what I love. And I think that's what you're talking about too, Jody Lynn, is when a client can say, well, I want this, but here's all the restrictions I see to having it. And you can say, okay, let's get down to the feeling, and let's get down to everything working out in the best way for you to fulfill that feeling in even better ways than you can imagine. Mm-hmm. It does come. It doesn't have to be in that structure when they loosen it up a little bit.
Yeah, it's like they had one path before, and now they're sitting at, instead of a fork at the road, it's like multiple different paths, 100 different paths that they could go down that'll lead them where they really want to go. Just choose your own adventure.
It is. And being ready and flexible to kind of go with that flow. Okay, this isn't exactly how I thought this would pan out, but this is even better. And this feels good. And I'm going to take this next step. I'm going to take this next step. Mm-hmm. And that's fun, right? When we can get into the flow of, even if someone out there feels stuck today, what you can do is just say, what feels good today? What feels like expansion today? What feels like a reset for you, depending where you are emotionally? If you're down in the dumps, maybe it's just trying to get to a neutral place. What feels like relief to you today? And then you can follow the breadcrumbs that start to come when you take that inspired action. And that is the fun of it. I mean, then you start to feel like you're playing with the universe. It's just such a joy to see what's coming next.
I also want to tie in another concept that you touched on very early when you were telling us your story and how your own experience led you to what you're talking about today. You made reference to being a people pleaser, which is very common. I'm kind of surprised they don't give out degrees in it because so many people have it. But but one of the big challenges with being a people pleaser is that you're trying to find good in everything, even if you don't really find it to be good. In other words, you kind of have to lie to yourself a lot. It has a number of different names that's applied to it now. They call it the imposter syndrome. I mean, there's a variety of different ways of describing it. But the bottom line is, it's the belief that you can't dislike something. That if you dislike something, well, first of all, law of attraction, if you dislike it, you're on the wrong vibration. It's going to screw everything up.
Oh God, it's over.
Oh my God, yeah.
Right.
And secondly, you know, well, you're not allowed to do that anyway because you're a people pleaser. You got a degree in this thing.
Yeah. I mean, people pleasers are very, very worried about rejection, because if they're not accepting themselves, then the acceptance has to come from outside themselves, or where is their worth, right? And also with that, I think it's about, again, around that worthiness, about having healthy boundaries and even being able to see. I actually have a course for sale on my website that is all about freedom from people pleasing. But one of the steps we really work through is, what are your feel good boundaries? And boundaries don't need to mean, hey, I need to call you up and have a big confrontation and tell you you're in my space and you need to move. It's about, where are you in regards to where you want to be? So what is your truth? A lot of times people pleasers will come into a discussion with another person with their compromise. So if someone says, hey, I'd like you to come over and help me move on Saturday, and the people pleaser has, they've got a kids event and they've got something else going and they really just don't want to, right? And it's not in their priority. Their gut isn't saying, yes, go help a friend. It's like not the right thing. They'll come in with their compromise instead of with their truth. So their compromise might be, I could show up for an hour in the morning. And the other party thinks that's their truth and will say, but could you come for an hour and a half? And then the people pleaser feels like taken advantage of, bulldozed over. And of course they do it, right? They show up and they do it. And so then there's resentment that breeds in these relationships. But if they come in with their truth, you know what? I cannot help you on Saturday. I've got too much going on. However, I'd love to come and help you unpack at some point next week, if that's what feels good to them, right? If that's their truth. And so coming in with your truth, and what you'll find is, when they can first identify their truth, because I think that's a challenge for a lot of people pleasers. They don't even know how to feel what they really want. So gaining that skill, what really does feel good to me? How does it feel in my body? What do I really want? How can I be honest about that? How can I present it in a way that feels like I'm taking up my space, that this is my right to say what I can and can't do, right? That's a practice skill. But then, being able to gain trust with the people around us, because when there are all of those pleasers out there, myself recovering, it's like no one really knows what you really think. No one really knows what you really mean. People can tell from your energy that there's something there's some hesitance there. There's some resentment there. Something's off. Exactly. And so it builds trust in a relationship to just say your truth. Mm-hmm. Then you'll realize that your relationships that you're trying so hard to please and get acceptance are gain more respect. If they are people that are meant to stay in your life, they're going to gain more trust, more truth, more freedom. And it's just so much better on everyone involved.
Well, there's also
sorry, go ahead, Bob.
No, go ahead. You go.
I was going to ask a question. So if you had something to add to that, I can ask after.
No, go ahead and ask the question. I was going to shift to a slightly different topic. So
I would love to hear more, Julie, about like finding that truth. If somebody is stuck and they're listening to this and they're like, I don't know, I want everything everybody else wants. Where do they even start? What do they do? I mean, outside of, they can just take your course.
That would be much too simple.
That would guide you right through it. Well, and that is where we start in the course is first, there is kind of a get to know you. And I do use meditations and hypnotic meditations to be able to guide people into feeling, what is my own intuition saying? Who am I? What do I stand for? What are the things I like about myself? How do I see myself in a positive light? And being able to kind of strip down to the basics of who am I? And how does it feel in my body when I want something and am lit up by something? How does it feel to give something when it feels good? And then how does it feel to give something? Where do you feel it? Where do you feel it in your body? What's your heart saying to you? What's your mind saying to you? Because we're all intuitive in different ways. Some people feel it in their gut. Some people just have a knowing. Some people might be able to visualize things. So it really is about getting to know, okay, if I strip all this down and I really bathe in this choice, am I feeling panicked? And I go through some of the symptoms that can come up, a quickened heart rate, a just negative emotion, that gut pain, that feeling, a tightened chest, a tightened throat, that feeling of, oh no, I did it again. I'm here again. I've got to show up and I don't want to. We have to slow down and give ourselves a chance to get to know our bodies, our intuition. And there's 4 meditations actually in this people pleasing course. And the first 2 really do help with that process of slowing down. And what do I want? And what feels good to me? There's a lot of role playing and journaling around, okay, I'm going to play this out. Someone asked me to do something. I don't feel good about it. I'm going to play out, what if I compromise like this? Oh, God, I still feel like horrible about it. Okay, then that wasn't a feel good compromise. This is your truth, and what does feel good? Maybe it's just your truth. Maybe it's a no. But being able to really play through, because those feelings will get louder as we stop ignoring them. And people pleasers have trained themselves from young things to, and myself included, to quiet intuition and to quiet our own inner knowing and to quiet our own what's for us and what's not. And so that's where I start with my training with this is really with that slowing down, getting to know yourself. Meditation, if you're not out looking for a course, do just some slowing down with your own mind where you're on walks and you just pay attention to what you enjoy, what you don't, what you like throughout your day, what lights you up, what doesn't make you feel good, whose company do you enjoy, whose company do you kind of wither and feel small. Paying attention to those things helps us define a little bit more of what our inner knowing and our intuition is saying.
Isn't there also a tendency to take the negative feelings and ramp them up? Like for instance,
how so?
Well, like if you, I won't speak to the people pleaser mentality because it's not really a route I've ever gone personally, but I've talked enough about it that makes me think it ties into what I'm thinking about. So
Sure.
what I'm thinking about is where it's more tied to the inner critic concept. Okay, I know I need to embrace my negative emotions and release them and do all that process, but I don't think I should just treat them as a negative emotion. They should be a negative emotion. It should be a horrible thing, because otherwise I don't really appreciate how negative it is. So let's go to the real depths of the damn thing.
Yeah, that is so true. Especially for people that ignore their intuition, because they will have to find, if they really don't feel good about something, they will scramble to make it bigger and find so many reasons to justify why they feel the way they do. And you're right, it just snowballs into a monster. It becomes bigger and bigger. It doesn't feel good to them. It kind of they lose a little bit of credibility, because anyone that they're talking to about it sort of sees the holes or the exaggerations in their argument. The bottom line is it's between you and you, and no one else needs to approve or disapprove of anything you do when it's your truth. And that, again, takes practice and repetition. I'm going to sound like a broken record myself saying that, but it takes practice and repetition to feel the positive effects of doing what I know to be right or what I feel to be right, even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else. And that is very scary for someone who has put their survival in their sense of survival when they were young in the pleasing of others. That might have served them at one point. There might be a pleaser who pleasing really got them through childhood. And it did serve them, and it was a tool. And now they've outgrown it, or they're an adult now, they're in charge, and now it's doing damage. And so, but yes, you're right, that snowball can really happen. That will happen a lot with my clients. You know, they might spend the first 20 minutes of the session just trying to argue why they feel the way they do. And I will often have to interrupt and say, okay, let's just boil it down to your truth. You didn't feel good about that. Or I'll have them say, you know, I didn't feel good about this scenario. I want to move in this direction instead. There was a woman who wanted to switch jobs and was just complaining and ramping up all the injustices. And it really boiled down to, wait, where do you see your gifts? What do you want? Oh, you never wanted to be in this role in the first place. Okay, where do you see yourself? And she was creating a whole dramatic story around just to justify for the people around her or to herself why she was going to switch roles. And so it really is just wasted effort and negative momentum, right? It can really drain us to go down those rabbit holes of trying to justify, when honestly, what if our truth was as black and white, you know, as the apple is red, that's a truth. And you can state it with confidence. The apple is red. And so what if your truth is just that straightforward? And that's our goal, is to get people to that point where their truth is the authority, and there's no apologizing about that.
It takes practice.
Oh, yes.
It takes a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I learned that firsthand just by starting this podcast 12 years ago. Because when I was first doing it, well, first of all, I didn't really feel like I was an expert on anything. I mean, I started because I needed the help, not because I was any good at it.
Sure.
Or on the experts, they taught me how it all worked, and some of them actually, we decided we're going to figure it out between us how the whole thing works. You know? But
and here you are,
and here I am, yeah. But in the short term, it was not so much imposter syndrome. It was more along the lines of, okay, this is what I'm thinking is happening, and so forth. Whereas now it's like, hey, this is what's happening.
Yes.
A different attitude associated with it.
Yes.
Which comes
that
with
authority, that owning your space. Authority,
it's a confidence too. The two kind of go together, but they build over time the more that you practice. I think that's where I'm trying to go with it. And it's the repetitive practice that makes the difference.
And the repetitive practice is what helps us feel just so safe too in those kind of decisions, because it doesn't have to be said in a way. For instance, sometimes we'll swing the pendulum the other way, where we went from people pleasers and then we just turned straight bitchy, you know, where because we're trying so hard to, this is my space, right? And if we can just relax into that authority you're talking about, well, where it's like, yeah, I own this space and I can talk about it and I can listen to your ideas about it, and I can still follow through. I can gather information and then trust my gut and follow through with what's right for me right here, right now. And it can be relaxed. It doesn't have to be this power struggle either. And I think as we practice, it's very normal for the pendulum to swing, and we get a little bit over the top. And then you just kind of mellow out, and with more practice, it can settle into a place that feels good and safe and easy, like you were talking about, that just ease and flow of life. There's no one out to get me. I'm here creating my own decisions, my own safety, and someone else's question asking something of me does not threaten me. I have a choice here, and to be able to be confident in that, there's just such a peace in that. And I love to see women, a lot of women are pleasers, you know, but men too, you know, I love to see them move into that space of, you know what? It's okay. I don't have to control who asked me what, when, where, how, I can just be. A lot of people will even socially withdraw because they're so afraid of either the inner critic that's going to come after being social, or that people pleaser that comes out and then they end up resenting something.
Which are actually personal cousins, by the way.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Like hand in hand best buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is why I work with both, right? So it's the same messaging behind all of it. And when that can loosen up, it just changes everything. The world becomes friendly. I'll say that. People can feel safe to be more social, to go out in public and say something silly or make a mistake and be able to laugh about it and be a little light with themselves.
Speaking for myself, one of the things that I've noticed most over time in my own journey is having gotten to the point where not only do I feel good most of the time and express that to other people, but I'm kind of amazed when others aren't.
Yeah. Well, and you're probably attracting other people that feel good most of the time. And so when you run into the occasional person who's got their set point much lower, it's kind of like, whoa.
Yeah, where that came from. Right.
Right.
How did you end up here?
Exactly.
You're not supposed to be on this platform.
We're not in the same realm.
Right. It's helping you calibrate. You're getting, even more specific. It's good.
100%. It's all an opportunity.
Right.
The other way I look at it too is when I have to get past that one thing, right? But once I get past that, then now this is something I'm doing a lot of. I look at the person and I can, within moments, see not only where their current set point is, but I can see the direction they're in.
Yeah. And
most often it's some slight slope upward.
Oh. And how do you see it? How do you see it playing out? Like, what's an example of seeing that in a person?
I think a lot of it is driven by the fact that I do this show with people like Jody Lynn and yourself, who come on and very positive orientation and all the different ways that we can help each other out and all that kind of stuff. So it does a lot of great things. It has done a lot of great things for my own mindset over the last 12 plus years.
Of course.
And I kind of see that same feeling no matter what I'm watching in somebody else. Even if they're not feeling it themselves, I can feel it for them, because I can sense where, okay, this person is at this place right now, and it's a really unpleasant place, and I can just see how that's going to turn into something good in the long run.
Yes, I love that.
You know what I mean?
That's the mentality that I have with all my clients.
Right.
They're coming to me because they feel anxious, because they're not enjoying their life. They want to be happier. They're they feel stuck, and it's like, I can see where they're going. I'm already excited by the end of session 1. Like I'm so excited about the end game that they're not even able to see yet. And yeah, completely know what you mean. And it's fun because you've done it. That's, I think, why we can see it, right? We've done that climb, and then it feels so easy to see others on that same path. Mm-hmm. And it makes the trial feel, I'm sorry to interrupt you, it makes the trials of it to feel exciting too. Mm-hmm. We start to see how, this is how challenges make us better and drive us to a better place. And then we can start to see how that could be in our own life too. I mean, it's harder to see with ourselves, but we can see it clearly with other people. And that's kind of a fun bridge to cross as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know that here on the show with my co-hosts like Jody Lynn, we find ourselves encountering all kinds of situations that mirror our own experiences in our private lives, either now or in the past, or perhaps even where we're dreaming for in the future, but most often now or in the past. And in that context, I mean, you tell me what your experience is, Jody Lynn, but for me, it's that every time I encounter something that is a little bit off my own perspective, or maybe even a lot off my perspective. I mean, most of the guests who come on, I can resonate with pretty easily. Sometimes we've had this experience. We've had a guest now, it just doesn't really click. You know, we're gritting our teeth, we're counting the minutes until the show is done, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yet, even in those situations, there's still something to learn from that person.
100%.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I find that it's always divinely on time. Like whatever it is, however it like shows up. It's actually quite creepy sometimes.
Very.
Yeah, I'll just give you a really quick example. I was literally just on the phone talking about having an opportunity to deal with some stuff that came up through my brother and some stuff that he's been going through. And my girlfriend was like, hey, this is an opportunity. Like, choose your own adventure. What do you want to choose? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to tap in. Like, what do I feel right now? I want to be right about this. And then, the beginning of our conversation, I wrote a bunch of things down, like micromanaging, like reviewing conversations, control. And I was like, oh, that light right there. Oh, I see you. It's okay. Like, oh, you're coming from a place. And I truly believe this, that like, we are all the things that are going on inside of our mind or inside of our system. It's just designed to protect us, to keep us safe. And it's not to put us down in any way. It's just an old behavior that it worked. It worked at some point in your brain. Like it's the old DOS software that needs to be updated. Oh, I got the old program running and I could see that like at the beginning of our conversation. Oh, I get it. I see you. And I can have that compassion and that grace for where I'm at. And then,
Awesome.
Let those feelings go and then choose, okay, what do I want now? And I'm in that, I was already in that space of earlier before we hopped on of like, hey, what is the boundaries that I need to set here? Like, what is the things that I need to see? And like, boom, Julie's here and tells me all the things and she doesn't even know. So
I love it. I love it. I love it. And that's just how it goes, right? When we're in this flow, it's like you just run into the right messaging at the right time. And there can be rapids on the stream and they have their purpose. And we're just flowing down the path of least resistance, but sometimes you still bump a rock and it does serve you in some way. And that's the challenging thing too, is I think when we see our friends or our siblings or anyone in the boats next to us paddling upriver or bumping all over rocks, that's their story. And we can play a supportive role, but that's their story. Like no one was meant to come in and save me from what I went through with my child's cancer. It had to play out. And we all grew from that. I am definitely a different person and able to serve the world in a different way with different tools than I ever would have had without some sort of trials. And so we're constantly evolving, and so are the people next to us. And I think that's sometimes a challenge too, is not judging when we're in a state of flow and someone else is in a state of challenge, not judging their challenge, that they are where they are right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
we're trying to control it. I wouldn't want anybody to take away or change the things that I went through that was hard or anything, because I grew so much and learned so much from each of those. But I think it's so interesting that I should just speak for me, but I immediately go to, oh no, I don't want you to be in pain. I don't want you to mess things up. I just want to put this nice little fence around you and you stay here and you'll be safe in this little box I made for you. I promise. It won't hurt. But that's not the point of life. And that's not the point of their experience. Like they chose this too.
Right.
And they need to go through it.
I find that even, I'll be out to coffee with a friend and I'm out of coach mode, right? I'm just in friend mode. We're just talking about kids or life or whatever. And I will find myself jump into wanting to fix something. And then I have had someone ask me before, well, what would you tell a client? And I'm like, whoa. I would not be trying to fix it. I would be asking some questions. We would be taking a step back here. And so it's so interesting. It comes from such a good place. You just want
Totally.
everybody to be safe and happy. And
Yeah.
but yeah, it's not always. Struggles are always on the path to where we want to go. It's hard to like them.
I'm going to be curious to see what both of you have to say about this, because today we live in a world. There's a great big conversation about a great political divide going on. There's a lot of contention about news items. There's a lot of contention in the entertainment world. I mean, it's all over the place. There's massive amounts of contrast going on. And in the context of that contrast, we're experiencing, well, a number of different things. We're experiencing a whole range of things. But one of the things that I think is fairly consistent is that people, as they're going through it, can see in others what they don't really see in themselves. That's a fairly common trait, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to fix something else in somebody else. I mean, work on my own stuff? Hell no, I don't want to have to deal with that stuff. I can see it in you a whole lot better than I can see it in me. So we live in a world where everybody is out there focusing on that external stuff about this person's doing that over there, that person's doing that over there. They may be doing it with blame, they may not be doing it with blame, but it's still external.
Yeah.
It's out there. And somewhere along the line, we lose track of the fact that it's actually not out there. It's actually in here.
Mm-hmm.
So the big challenge and I see it all over the place. I see it in myself too, is it's coming to grips with that fact that this is not out there. This is not that person. This is not that child. This is not that parent. This is me.
Yeah.
That's a hard conclusion to come to.
It is.
Yeah, because the critic comes in and is like, yeah, see, you suck. Told you.
I was right all along.
Yes.
It's all your fault.
Yes. Oh, and I think if we back up the lens, like really, that's my tactic in those scenarios is to just back up and get really general. And, when you're down on humanity, just back up and get really general. Most of the people, really care about the well-being of those around them, and just get really general about where you're putting your focus that can help. Because we are emanating, right? This is law of attraction. We are broadcasting a signal. And what signal do you want to be broadcasting? If you're focused on the hate, you're broadcasting, you're meeting that energy. And so how are you going to help uplift the world? Because like Einstein said, the solution is on a totally different frequency than the problem. So my method is to broaden my view and be able to uplift my energy and hopefully be inspired with some solutions. I think we see the problems and they bother us, and that's normal because we're humans and we don't want to see people getting hurt or things happening that are injustices. But at the same time, if we stay there, we're feeding it. And so notice it, see how it makes you feel. And then we've got to back up and talk to ourselves about the generalities of the goodness in people and in things and in the world, and get to set the intention of being part of the solution. And I think that's when, Mother Teresa, I'll probably butcher this, but says, I won't be part of your anti-war rally, but I'll be part of your peace march, right? So something along those lines. Don't quote me. But I think it is about being part of the solution instead of perpetuating the negativity or the chaos that we feel or observe.
And I think too, and I don't know if you'd agree, Julie, that, and I'm sure you would agree actually, that for me and like the people that I've coached and the people in my life, something that's been a game changer is separating the right and the wrong. Like I can still see that there's injustice And me letting this go and dealing with this inside and only controlling what I can actually control, which is me, feeling into me and reflecting back into the world what I want to see, doesn't make that injustice right. Doesn't make what that person did to me right or fair, or let them off the hook in any way. And I think people confuse that with like forgiveness with that, of letting somebody off the hook. And it's really letting yourself off the hook to feel something different, to let go of that and let that be their journey and to emanate something different.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so too. And also, again, we can so easily judge the struggle that someone else is in, even on that broader world scale. And we don't often know the bigger plan or their soul's journeys and what they need to accomplish here. And so that can take some of the pressure off too, from feeling like we somehow need to judge or fix things. But instead just lining up with ourselves, like, where's my highest path in this? And what's helpful and what's not, right?
Yeah.
There's also another slice that occurred to me when I was trying to describe what I was describing a moment ago, which is that people will, because they're focused on that externality, they can get themselves into a place of thinking, well, we just got to get everybody onto the same wavelength here. We just got to get everybody on the same track. If we all just agreed that this was the right thing to do, it would all be a better world. We can make a better world that way. That's a very common thing that I encounter quite a bit. And every time I encounter it, I basically first have to cover my own mouth so I don't say anything. And then the second thing I have to do is find a way to shift my attention away from it, because I know where they're going isn't going to lead where they think it's going to go.
Yeah.
It's a very misleading kind of a mentality.
Right.
That, well, and I even hear it among people in our broader LOA circle or spirituality circle. You know,
Totally.
we have this big shift going on right now vibrationally, and it's definitely happening. More and more people are reporting it. More and more people are experiencing it. And yet, even as that's going on, I continue to hear people saying, yeah, we're getting to the point where everybody's going to be raised into a better level, and they're all going to behave differently, and they're all going to buy into this new way of thinking. And I think to myself, yeah, are you in the 3D world still?
And how is that any different than fanatically spreading any sort of religion or anything else, right? Yeah. It's just taking away that need to control. We're here for our own journey. It's like stay in your lane sort of thing. Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. And appreciate it too.
Right. Love my lane.
Yeah, a good lane. Enjoy it. That was the hardest thing for me, actually, when I was going through the early stages of my own journey. I used to describe that winding path you were talking about as a roller coaster, because to me that's the way it felt. Every single thing that happened that was not what I was hoping for was either a super fast ride up or a slam down into the ground kind of a ride. Now over time, you know, it's actually turned into a merry-go-round rather than a roller coaster, but that's the way it felt for the longest time. And I think a lot of people at various stages in their journey are experiencing that.
What do you think mellowed that out for you? What do you think evolved it?
I think it's an accumulation of experience. I mean, from a strictly LOA perspective, I had a lot of doubt about whether or not the whole thing would actually work. You know, it sounded great theoretically, but practically I wasn't so convinced. And then, you know, of course, my experience would mirror that. And then, well, then it can't be true, you know.
Of course.
But over time, as you gain that broader perspective that you were talking about, because that is where that comes from, it comes over time, then you begin to start seeing the evidence pile up. And it's a different amount of evidence, a different pile of evidence that is convincing from one person to the next. For me, it was a pretty high pile, but but once you see enough of that pile, you say, all right, okay, yeah.
And I could imagine too that sometimes it's like, when we go through the roller coaster, at least for me, when you realize you survive things that you felt like were the end of the world or so dramatic, or, you know, and that you gleaned from it, it starts to take power away from the just severe thinking, you know, or even this is a good experience and this is a bad experience.
Right.
You know, it really diffuses that into, well, this is just an experience and it's a challenge for my emotions right now, and I'm going to grow from it, you know, and Again, as a human, is that a challenge? Yes. Does it take practice? Absolutely. Do I do it perfectly? No, not at all. But this is just, it does mellow out, which is relief. And that is where that life enjoyment comes in. That's where that set point, when I work with clients, it's not that their life is going to turn perfect. It's that they're going to deal with the external circumstances in such a different way because they're standing in their own value and power as the creator of their own life. And so it just doesn't feel like you're being whipped around. It feels like you're the one painting the picture. Yeah. So it just mellows out with experience, like you said, with experience.
Well, it doesn't necessarily mellow out. Sometimes it actually keeps going as a roller coaster, but you feel differently about it. It used to be, oh my God, it's a roller coaster. Now, like, oh wow, it's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
All the way to look at, all the perspective.
Yes. Well,
I have to tell you, Julie, we've really enjoyed having you on the show, and we love the work that you're doing. We do have 3 things that we do at the end of every show, and we'd like to do them with you. First and foremost, for those people who might be interested in learning more about what you're doing, or maybe finding out about your Release the Inner Critic or your coaching practices or anything like that, we should probably tell them how to find you. So why don't you actually tell people how to find you?
Yes, pretty simple. Go to my website at julievcoaching.com. So Julie V as in Victor, coaching.com. And that's where you'll find my people pleasing course, my Release Your Inner Critic guide workbook, which is totally free download. And it really does go through the steps that I go through with my clients. It's a powerful little guide. And then my one-on-one coaching as well. I have free consults. And again, it's life-changing stuff. So I hope you reach out if this speaks to you.
That's a beautiful thing. Number 2 is I always like to go to Jody Lynn, my co-host, because she always has a really fabulous, fascinating perspective on what the conversation has been all about, particularly when she participates as much as she did in this one, which I love. But Jody Lynn, what are you thinking about? What's grabbing your attention today?
Oh man, so many things, like bringing it right back to the basics. Thank you so much for that beautiful and so important reminder of we are the main characters in our lives. We have the opportunity to choose a new adventure, however you want to call it, to create the life that we want. And just the reminder also that it takes practice, not perfection. This journey is a journey of 1,000 steps, and it starts with just one, just today. And that's how you make the biggest difference in your life. That is the difference maker. So thank you for that reminder today.
Oh, of course. It's been so much fun talking to both of you. You both just, the wisdom flows out of you. So this has been a really fun conversation.
And that actually ties into the third thing that we like to do each time, which is something I noticed a few years back. We now live in the 21st century where we're all connected. I mean, you're in St. Paul, I'm in Hartford, Connecticut area, Jody Lynn's in Alberta, Canada. I have a co-host who's over in the UK in Sussex outside of London. I mean, we're all over the place, and we're able to connect in a way that we never could 30 years ago. So it's an entirely different environment. One of the things that goes along with that is we now have, we have different ways of marketing things, different ways of sharing information. More and more people have discovered, like yourself, that they want to give back. They want to find ways to help other people in ways that they were able to help themselves. And so we end up doing podcasts, and we do social media, and we write articles, and we create courses, and we write books, and we do all this other kind of stuff. And a lot of it gets put out there for free because we want to help as many people as possible. And then it gets consumed by people we never even know about. And hopefully it helps them. We never really hear about that either. Mm-hmm. And that's where I realized that the gap was, because the gap is we don't get credit for that. So Julie, on behalf of those people you've never met, never seen, never will meet, never will see, who you've been helping in ways you don't even know about, on their behalf, thank you for what you're doing, because you're making a difference in this world.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you for saying that. And thank you to both of you for the exact same thing. You're bringing light and joy and elevation to the world. And it's such a good work. So thank you.
We have a great time doing it. That's why it's your daily dose of happy.
Yay.
Thank you very much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.